A good Erev Shabbos, everyone. Erev Shabbos, Parshas Bahaloscha in America, Parshas Shelach in Eretz Yisrael. I want to hit something that touches both Parshas. The end of Parshas Bahaloscha talks about the Maisa Miriam, talks about the Lashon Hara that Miriam spoke against Moshe, and the beginning of Parshas Shelach talks about the Lashon Hara that the Meraglim spoke about Eretz Yisrael. Rashi himself points out that there's a connection between the two Parshas, says Lama Nispacha, Parshas Meraglim, Parshas Miriam. Why are these two Parshas juxtaposed next to each other? Lefi Shelach Aliske Diba Shedibra Biachia, that because she suffered from the Lashon Hara that she spoke about her brother, and Halalu Ro, these Meraglim, these spies saw, V'lo Lakhu Musar, and they didn't take Musar, and they spoke Lashon Hara, and therefore we put the two Parshas together. It's it's a famous Rashi, and it's a very important Rashi, but what does that mean? So because that's about Lashon Hara, this is about Lashon Hara, and therefore the two Parshas next to each other, okay, that's, not a bad juxtaposition, but what were they supposed to learn from her? She was speaking Lashon Hara about a person. They were speaking Lashon Hara about the land. She didn't have any sinister, there was nothing negative in what she was doing. She was doing it because she loved her brother and she loved her sister-in-law and just couldn't understand how this situation could get to the way that it was. So she ended up saying something which was considered Lashon Hara. These guys, they set off doing something very good, but in the end, it turned into something very terrible because they really had had their own negias, they had their own personal feelings involved, and they really were trying. There are many different explanations of what was the motivation of speaking that Lashon Hara, but speaking bad about the land and trying to keep the Jewish people really out of going into the land of Israel. There are different explanations of their motivation, but whatever it was, the motivation at the moment, whether it started off bad or not, but their motivation was pretty sinister. So what's the connection between the two? Where are we expecting? And are we saying that that's the worst thing? The worst thing is that they saw Miriam speak Lashon Hara, and they didn't, they didn't learn, they didn't take Mussar from it. Okay, they didn't take Mussar from it. It's like, you see a guy's Michal Shabbos and eating treif, and you say, and speaking Lashon Hara, and he also puts his shoes on wrong. He doesn't put the right and left on the right way. So you look at him and you go, boy, that guy, what a terrible guy, puts his shoes on wrong. It's like shkayach, the guy's Michal Shabbos, and he's and he does all other kinds of isurim, all other kinds of prohibitions. So okay, so he did that one thing wrong. Like, what's the big deal? So what are we making such a big deal for about the Meraglim that they spoke deep about the land? They did worse things. They put the Jewish people in peril. They went and they did something that caused the Jewish people to make a terrible blunder, a terrible mistake. Kodesh Baruch Hu got so upset with them that Tisha B'Av became a national day of mourning because of it. So what does this mean? So I think the Torah wants to tell me something very, very fundamental and very, very, very simple. What the Torah wants to tell me is that the problem with the Meraglim was that they saw what happened to Miriam, and there was an expectation that they would be able to extrapolate. Because that's the way a Jew has to live. A Jew has to live his life extrapolating, learning things, looking at things and saying, oh, I understand why that's happening. I understand how that's connected to something else that I did, something else that I'm involved in. A person has to constantly live beyond the surface and has to be able to live in the depths of life. And it's not an extra expectation that we have of a person. It's a very basic part of existing. Because if you're going to develop a relationship with God, if you're going to have emunah and bitachon, if you're going to have a deep emotional relationship with the mitzvos that you do, then you have to live beyond the surface. When you live on the surface, you live in a dangerous place. But the question, of course, is that why are we living on the surface? And that's the reason why this is the incident that connects the two of them. Why does a person speak Lashon Hara? There's only one reason why a person speaks Lashon Hara. Is because a person is seeing something negative. Before you start to analyze a person, before you start to look at, the psychoanalyze and say, why does a person have to need to speak about other people and put them down in order to be able to feel great? Before you touch any of that stuff, how'd you get the Lashon Hara into your mouth? How'd you get that Lashon Hara into your head? How'd you get that thought that the person needs to be run down about? How'd you get that into your head? Because you were looking at the world negatively. You are looking at that person with a negative eye. And when you look at things with a negative eye, there's plenty what to talk about. When you look at the world in a positive way, when you look at people in a positive way, everything looks completely different. But when you're a fabissener, when you're a negative person, then everything in the world is colored in negativity. And by definition, you rise to the surface. That same eye that doesn't allow you to see the positive and the good in a person is the same eye that you look only at the surface. You look only at the externals of things, only at the chitzonius, and you can't see the pnimius. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu demands. Rachmana liba boy is not just that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to feel it emotionally, he wants us to feel it in our hearts, but he wants us to see through our hearts. He wants us to be able to see deeper than just the surface of life. It's a problem that we have in so many things that we do. And it's the reason why things aren't geschmack to us. It's the reason why we don't have this incredible buzz in learning, why we don't have this incredible buzz from Shabbos, why we don't have this incredible enthusiasm to mitzvos. Why we sometimes take an indifferent back seat to things. Because when you look at things on the surface, there's nothing really attractive about them. But when you start to look in the depths, that's when you see the beauty and the attraction. That's when you see the enthusiasm and the excitement. And what Kodesh Baruch Hu is telling us is that the reason why the Meraglim unraveled is because they lived life on the surface. The reason why Miriam ended up speaking Lashon Hara is because she was living life on the surface. And when you live life on the surface, you have negative things to say. You have a negative outlook. You don't see any beauty. And life unravels before you. And that's the message that takes 2 weeks to learn. Parshas Bahaloscha and Parshas Shelach. Don't live in a superficial world. Live and look and see beyond the surface, because then you'll be able to see the beauty that exists. Lashon Hara won't be something you have to control. It'll be something that it won't exist in your life. Because if there ain't nothing negative to say, then no Lashon Hara will be spoken. If all you can see is beauty and positivity, then Lashon Hara dies of loneliness. Have a beautiful and amazing Shabbos.